Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Silver Lyming. As you all know, I've brought this podcast together to help share stories of others who have gone through Lyme and tick-borne illness and their healing journeys with it. I feel that it's very important to share how others have gotten better for people who are still experiencing it to have some type of maybe insight or some tackling fuel that again helps their spirits fuel themselves forward and continue to fight. Because for those of us who have lived through this journey, we know it is not necessarily easy. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of determination, a lot of resiliency, to say the least. And one of my special guests that I've got today here, well, my only special guest, but one of my special friends, I should say, is Tashia. And Tashia Linderman, she owns Building 7. She's recently acquired that over the last year. It's been really fun to watch her transformation and going through that, becoming a business owner, and how she's learned and grown and just made things amazing for herself. And she has done that while recovering from Lyme and tick-borne illness. When I met you, you were brought to me basically to talk to a little bit more about how I got better and hopefully give you some insight into ways that you could get yourself better as well. And you've somehow managed to do that. And I'm really proud of you for that. Because again, it's not easy, Tashia. We know that. And what you've got going on elsewise, and we were talking a little bit beforehand, but just having, again, taken on a new business, understanding the ins and outs of that, learning how to do that. It's more than a full-time job, plus then the addition of having to take care of yourself. And so if you don't mind, if you could share a little bit more with us about your story. And really, again, I think the timing of it is crazy that you can lay out your timeline a little bit better, but from where you got sick to where you are now and the things that you've accomplished in the middle is phenomenal. So.
Well, thank you for introducing me. And I'm so appreciative that you invited me to be on your podcast. I do think that we were meant to meet, especially because we have like a little bit of a mutual friend, but I'll never forget when we met at the restaurant that night. We all just kind of clicked and we did like some palm readings, and it was super fun. And I'm glad that we're staying connected and hopefully helping someone along the way. But yeah, so a little bit of for the timeline of my story is I actually never found a tick bite. I had no clue that I was sick at all, or dealing with anything inside my body until about May of 2022 was when I started feeling like I had an injury in my wrist and my elbow on my right side. So I obviously teach yoga, do a lot of yoga. So I was thinking like I overstretched something's just inflamed. Like I haven't really had many injuries before to know exactly, but it wasn't like ow, like I broke my wrist one day. It was just like a slow progression of like, next thing you know, I'm like, this is like a problem, because in class, I wasn't being able to do things that I used to be able to do anymore. So it started with the typical like icing it, things like that, because there wasn't, again, any like obvious thing. And it was maybe about like 2 weeks of that where it was pretty bad. And then I finally just went to the doctor of like, okay, well, this is an injury. I need to get it, looked at. It's not getting better. And the doctor basically right away after I explained everything, so grateful that she was one of the doctors that kind of just knew, because I've heard many stories, like many, 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 many stories of how that is not the case at all. Most of the time they're being an advocate for themselves of, okay, I've had this issue for months, years, like what is wrong? Now I have to research myself. So I was super grateful that the doctor I had actually was like, no, like this is not an injury at all. Like you have Lyme disease. So thank you for my doctor for being so knowledgeable, especially because we live in Berks County. So it's one of the most tick-borne illness areas in the country, I believe. Yes. So I was very happy and proud that she, knew about it. So anyway, she basically said that, and I was like, oh, okay. And, didn't really know what, how she knew that right away by seeing what was going on. But I guess she just saw other cases that were maybe similar, things like that. And just basically how I was explaining, I thought I had an injury. And then she basically looked at everything and was like, there's no way this is an injury based off of what I'm seeing. So then from there, she put me on antibiotics, and I had 3 weeks to start, went back to see her, and nothing really changed. Like it was better, but when I say better, like maybe like 2 points better, like out of 10, like not, so feeling less irritated on the regular basis. Like I feel like I could do more. Whereas before I went to the doctor, it was like pretty much like I was keeping my wrist like in not a sling, but one of those stabilizers, just because I didn't know what was wrong. So after like going on the antibiotics for 3 weeks, I could do more and be a little less irritated, but I could tell that my body was still not 100%. And also it was actually really funny because after I saw the doctor while I was on these antibiotics, the fatigue kicked in. So before I saw the doctor, it was mostly just what I thought was injury. So just super inflamed wrist and, really hurting. And then right after I saw the doctor, then it was like, oh, well, this makes sense. It's Lyme because now I'm feeling other symptoms. Like, I mean, I was just so tired. Like I would wake up from a 10-hour sleep and be like, wow, I could go back to bed now. So just like so tired to the point where I was like, okay, like, I don't know how I can like do my normal day, because you just feel like you literally want to sleep all the time. So that made it more obvious to myself of like, oh, okay, like this makes sense that it's not an injury even more because now I'm feeling other things, other effects from it. So went back to the doctor after 3 weeks of antibiotic, told her what I basically just told you of, it's a little better, really not great though. I'm definitely not feeling myself still. So then she was like, okay, let's do another round of antibiotics because I guess there's been other things in the past where it takes more antibiotic to get it back to where you need to be. So I was like a little leery about that because I am pretty health conscious and I know that, the antibiotic can definitely be a little strong and affect other things in your body, especially your gut. So I wasn't fond of it, but I was like, okay, this is what we have to do. So we did another 3 weeks of antibiotics. So really that other 3 weeks, like I did not see anything different from the first 3 weeks. So I didn't even go back to the doctor after that. Actually, I just, because I knew that I didn't want to go on antibiotic anymore after that. So I was like, okay, well now it's time to look into something else. So it was maybe like a month or so where I really just didn't know what to do. So this was 6 weeks after May. So we're in like June or late June. And I don't really know. Like, I think I was just kind of asking people like around me, like, hey, this is what I have and I don't know what to do. And this is what I did so far. And thankfully, again, I have some good people in my corner and in my community. And someone recommended me to go to a nutritionist that they know personally that has dealt with Lyme themselves and was like super, like had it way worse than I had it of like, she apparently was like not able to walk at one point because she didn't know what she had. So those stories really like hit home for me because I can't even imagine knowing how bad I felt, like how bad some other people may have felt when they've had it. So I was like, okay, great. Like, let's talk to this person that, hopefully will know more. So I went to the nutritionist and that's when I got more educated. So again, I was really grateful that the doctor at least knew what was wrong with me because that really shortened the time period of like figuring things out. Even though she may have not had the best approach to fix, but at least I found out what I had quickly. So that was really good. And then told the whole story to the nutritionist. And she, knew firsthand all of the things I was saying, just like Anne is probably like, yes, she knows all the things. And basically she just educated me on things that I had no clue about Lyme and about our bodies in general, just with diet. But the big thing that I learned about Lyme from her that I did not know was, and that the doctor maybe didn't know or didn't tell me, I don't know. But I find it interesting, like that it wasn't said anything from the doctor about this, but yet the nutritionist knew. So I get curious of like what the gap is there, what the difference is, or, like the education, you just wonder. But anyway, so nutritionist told me that actually like Lyme, if you don't catch it after 3 or 4 weeks of getting bit, and meaning like you don't know you're bit and get antibiotics in your body within that first 3 to 4 weeks, then it will actually live in your body forever because it creates an embryo around itself to protect itself, and then nothing will kill it. So my mind was blown at this point. I'm like, holy crap, that's super interesting, but also super scary, because now I'm like, what the heck? Like now I know that this is definitely embryo in me, because I didn't even find the tick bite. So again, then she, made a point to say, like, you definitely probably were bit months before you started to feel your arm, because obviously it takes a good while for it to manifest somewhere so distinctly where you're feeling it so distinctly. So anyway, she kind of educated me a little bit about how some of that works. So I was, definitely more fearful and a little bit feeling like stuck, like very just like, well, now what? And just the thought of it being in my body forever definitely is just not a fun feeling to think about, and to think about what you're going to deal with later or through this whole journey. So then she educated me on the diet of just in general, like basically like how we should be eating anyway, like whether you have Lyme or not. So I've never been to a nutritionist or really gotten any education like as deeply as she gave me about diet. So that was actually really cool and interesting though, to learn whether I had Lyme or not. It was like a cool thing to kind of be forced to do. And so she just put me on a really specific diet of basically to get rid of all the inflammation in my body. So, long story short of like, it feeds off of inflammation on the body. So that's where you're going to feel it in your joints. And, that's where you're going to feel it the most. And that's when it's going to start to affect you, is if it can live and feed off of things in your body. So we want to take out the things that it cannot feed on and hope that it'll stay dormant as forever. So she just basically put me on a diet, which is gluten-free, very minimal dairy, no added sugar, even natural sugar was supposed to be like super limited, like, very minimal fruit, and specific fruits that don't have, a lot of natural sugar, and no seed oils. Gosh, it was pretty, in the beginning, there was some strict things. And then it was even diving a little bit into the intermittent fasting as well. Those were probably the core things that I really focused on. I'm probably missing a few there. So I feel like now I'm just talking a lot, and I know I'm supposed to say my story, but I didn't know if you wanted to ask me a specific question or if I should just kind of.
You're doing fantastic.
Okay.
So useful and helpful, and you're right on target, and you're bringing up so many good points, and just thinking about, getting information first, right? Like sometimes that's really what you have to do. And it's hard to find the right source, because there's a lot of different sources for information on how to fix this. But I'm glad that you were guided to that person, and people who have lived it, I think oftentimes are going to be much better because they've had the experience and they can put themselves in their shoes too. So sometimes maybe that goes back to a little bit more of the difference between that doctor, say, and the nutritionist, because the nutritionist has lived it versus the doctor has maybe only ever seen it, and very different experiences.
Exactly. So I got educated, and I find, like I said, I kind of feel like I'm a little lucky for sure of just not only being able to be directed to the right people and knowing what was wrong pretty quick, and then even being directed to the nutritionist who could really educate and help very quickly. So then at that point, it was more up to me of, okay, now I have the tools and now I have to use the tools. So that was definitely the most challenging part of staying super, super dedicated to the diet. And as someone that doesn't have like dietary restrictions or allergies or anything, I, could basically really just eat whatever I wanted before this. So it was a huge shift, especially because our society does not make it very easy or accessible to find things that are gluten-free, sugar-free, seed oil-free, like all of the things free. I was really finding out that when it doesn't have one thing, then it has the other thing.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't have gluten, it definitely has sugar.
Yes.
If it, doesn't have dairy, it has soy.
Yeah.
So, that was the bigger challenge of like, oh, okay, like here's something that doesn't have what something I can eat. And then it was like, you look further and it's like, okay, never mind. So I really felt like it was just like, I couldn't find things to eat. I mean, like obviously vegetables and meat were staples at that point, which is great. But it was in that initial switch over, it's really hard to be like, okay, well, I'm craving like my normal, I don't even know like a good example, but just maybe like a dessert or something like that. So it was those were the harder times of like, okay, like what can I like alter to still kind of have something so I don't feel so deprived through this whole thing. So anyways, it was really challenging, but it was very eye opening. And I definitely started to feel better within like probably like 2-3 weeks. Like it was very quick. I feel like, I mean, it's been a little while now since then, so I can't remember exactly, but I know it was not much more than a few weeks of starting to feel better. And another huge thing was like my skin, and I don't really have skin issues, but just like the skin clarity, like I just looked brighter in my face. I don't really know how to explain that. Like, cause it wasn't like I really had acne, but my face just looked more cheerful, if that makes sense. Like almost like a pregnancy glow. I felt like that's how it looked. So I did notice that. Energy levels were insane. Obviously just feeling better because I wasn't tired and I wasn't feeling all of this hurt and ache and pain. So it was just kind of feeling like a new person again, because I think I was probably feeling some of those things even longer than what I thought. So at this point, we're probably like into like the end of July when I started to really, feel better, maybe even August. So I really stuck with that for probably like a good solid 3 to 6 months of like really, really staying strict with the diet. And now I'm a little more lenient, but I still really try to stick with it just because I don't really like eating those other things that I used to eat, just because now I notice the difference too. Like, again, it was a cool thing to have that education on the diet, even without Lyme, because it definitely has helped me in other ways too. So that's kind of the timeline anyway. Not a very long timeline, which I'm lucky though for that.
Well, and you bring up a really good point. And what your nutritionist was explaining to you is like, usually if people catch it right away, granted, maybe it happened a couple months, but like if you catch it initially versus it going on for years, 70% of people will just go on and not have any real lingering symptoms. So I'm glad for you in a sense that, not in a sense at all, but like, I'm so grateful that you got a doctor that knew soon enough, like sooner than later too, so that you could really start treating much earlier, because the longer it goes, as you know, the more the corkscrew shaped organism can burrow into our bodies and it really sets in, and it's just so much harder to make it come out. So there's so many good things that happen to you in a sense with that timing of it not having been forever and a day, and that you were already probably in a pretty good healthful state. So your body, that helps you too, to obviously hopefully push things off more quickly. I'm glad for you that it was pretty fast of recovery. Did you do any kind of herbs or anything like that as well? Probiotics?
I didn't do herbs. I forgot. That's a good question. She did put me on a few supplements. So I already take like what I would say is like my daily vitamin. I do Athletic Greens. And so she was like, that's great. Like, cause she would have put me on a multivitamin if not, but she was like, that's a good brand. It's, blah, blah, blah. All the things are good with that. So that was good. I could just continue to do that. Highly recommend. And then she put me on a probiotic because I was not on a probiotic. She put me on fish oil, I believe, and one other one. I think probiotic, fish oil. I don't remember the third one. I think it was just 3, the fish oil, the probiotic, and something else. I'll have to think, and like if it comes to me, I'll say. And then I just continued with my multivitamin. And she actually ordered them for me. She must be a part of some kind of, program or wholesale or something like that where you could get, and it was like known, or not known, but like good brands that don't have like all the fillers and stuff like that. So yes, she did have me do those as well. So I'm sure they definitely played a part, especially like the probiotic, because she was saying too, because of the antibiotic for 6 weeks, like we were also probably healing the gut as well, on top of like trying to get the Lyme under control. So there was a lot going on with the diet, or a lot that was helping from the diet. So yes.
Yeah, because when we get the gut health is so vital in our immunity and that whole response system. And when we get the gut health where it needs to be, then basically all the beneficial bacteria in our body is able to fight off, everything that's coming at it that generally speaking could affect other people with not as strong gut health, because again, that bacteria is not there in those people. So that's really important. And just for regular people who are not affected currently speaking, gut health is very, very important and something that we all should work on and do a little bit better with. I think we can always stand to make some sort of an improvement to that whole setup.
It's so crazy to me how closely connected the mind and the gut are. It's like they might as well just be the same thing, because that's literally how connected they are. It's actually wild. Like, and if you don't know that and you're not aware of that and you don't feel the effects of that, I highly recommend starting to be aware of that, because I even had plenty of issues back in college, like not related to Lyme, of just like mental health, and my gut was just destroyed. I mean, I had severe irritable bowel just from stress. They did every test under the sun, nothing, like I wasn't allergic to anything, nothing was wrong with me. And it is wild how much it'll affect your gut. So just throwing that out there of like extra education, people, heal the gut.
That's right. Again, the self-care. I mean, that's something else that we had touched on a little bit before we got on here, but taking care of yourself and making space for yourself and to change your entire nutritional intake plan is very hard. I mean, you're reprogramming something that's very deeply rooted in your being, because you eat every day, you see food every day, and we have our tendencies, we have our habits, we have our things that we like. And so to relearn how to do it in a different fashion is very hard. That takes a lot of energy and a lot of strength. And I'm also just thinking about like where you are at from a timing perspective. So like that was right before, in a sense, that you bought your business. So I'm kind of glad that you were able to deal with that before that, but then enter in the stressors of your business and how that's pulling on you and just taking up a lot more time from you. What then has happened with your self-care? Are you still able to do that? Are you still able to maintain the diet? Is that something that you're still working on? Or is it kind of now you've gotten to the point where you're healthy enough that you're like, nah, I'm good. I can kind of go back to where I was before.
Yeah. So I'm, again, grateful that it was under control, like right before the business became a thing, like right before we were looking and doing that and getting into that, because I really don't know how that would have went. Like, I don't want to say that it wouldn't have happened, but with how involved I was with like trying to just be healthy and like get better, I probably could have, pushed opportunities aside maybe, or oversaw them or something like that. So I'm super, again, happy for how all the timing was. But yeah, then beginning of the following year, so 2023, we actually purchased the business February 1st of 2023. So it really got serious like the end of 2022. So like December. So like you said, not long after. And so at that point I was still very strict with the diet too. So I was kind of still in it, but feeling better. So yeah, like that in itself is amazing. But that, I would say, like the business has definitely or took priority over everything else, like hands down, like over my relationships, over my health, really. Like, not that that's not in my brain, but it's definitely become number one, the business anyway. And then everything else kind of falls after. But it's funny because now that we're right at the year mark, like that is actually like my huge ultimate goal this year, is to make sure that I'm number one priority and everything else is after that. And I'm like totally okay with it, the business being the number one priority, because it was like it's my dream, it's my passion, it's everything I wanted. So, and it kind of needed to be priority to be where I'm at. So I'm glad I had the space to do that, and could still maintain as much as I possibly could, like with my mental health and my physical health and stuff like that. Like, there definitely were times where I remember like looking in the mirror or something and just being like, all right, like this has got to stop. Like, whatever little habits picked up or fell off or whatever it was, like through this last year of just, getting the hang of things, like whether it was lack of sleep or eating one meal a day because I'm just not thinking about food, which is unlike me. I'm always a hungry person. But when you're just so busy, like you just don't even feel hungry sometimes. Probably more caffeine intake than what I should be having, like you name it. There's lots of things, like not exercising as much, like not getting outside as much. The list goes on. But I always still like kept it in the back of my mind, like I said, where I would, when I felt really like it was getting too far off, I'd be like, okay, wait a minute. Like, what do you need to do this week to prioritize you again, even just for today or something. So I still kept it like there, just not as strong. And then, like I just said, like this year, my goal is to really make me more of the priority again, and then still keep everything else, on the radar there too. But so yeah, I've definitely had some, if you want to say like relapses, as far as just not being great with the diet. So after so long of that, like there was a few months where it probably really fell off in the beginning there. And like I will feel the little bit of achiness in the elbow and the wrist when that happens. Definitely energy levels can be affected for sure. I don't know if it's necessarily like at the point where I was before, but just, you're stressed and things, your energy level is going to go down and you're not eating right. So I do feel the effects, and it's so funny. I have like a love-hate with that, where I hate it because I'm reminded I have it, and I'm reminded that there's this struggle that I'm going to have to kind of like always deal with or keep priority, which is just frustrating because we already have so many things that are struggles in our life that it's like really just add it to the list. But also it can feel alone because, you're dealing with this struggle, whereas everyone else has their own struggles. But when it's, when you have a struggle that's very different than what other people have, like, so whether it's Lyme or maybe it's another autoimmune, or maybe it's like a skin thing, something that's less common. It does feel alone sometimes. You feel like no one really understands how you feel, or you feel like maybe you're preaching to the choir, or like, I don't know, it just feels kind of lonely sometimes. But I also think that I'm like losing my train of thought too here now. What was I saying?
Now I was like, oh God, don't do this to me now in my brain.
Like I was going somewhere, but I can't remember now. Because I'm saying like about feeling lonely, and then I'm saying about
well, it was like a love-hate because it's kind of like you love it.
That's what it was. Yes, because I'm like, okay, shoot, like I had a good point here, and now I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we'll have to cut that out. But anyway,
that's okay. The Lyme brain.
I was saying the love-hate because of feeling lonely, and the other point that I had before that I don't remember. So
with the diet and stuff too, I think maybe and just all the stressors of like the new job and taking that on, but also
well, I was saying like I was getting at that I like have a love hate with it because so I was saying like the bad side of it, of like the hate side is like being reminded that you have this in your body and then feeling lonely because you have something different than a struggle from other people, but then like the love part of it, so this is where I lost my train of thought, was or is, well, this is like your reminder to like be healthy again. So, okay, you can only go off track or cheat so much, and then, you're going to feel it. So then it motivates you to get back on track, because if I don't feel any different, well, I'm just going to keep eating bad and doing bad things and not feel any different from it. But when you feel the difference, then you're like, okay, I don't want to feel this way. So I'm going to get back on track and do what I know I need to do. That's what I was trying to get out.
Yes. And I've talked about that with some of my other guests before. It's like almost like a permanent, lifelong accountability coach. Yep. And you've got your angel and you've got your devil. And depending on which one you want to listen to, but they're both Lyme, and they're just kind of there waiting for you to decide what you're going to do. And if you start to go too far to the one side, it slaps you and makes your arm hurt or brain tired or feel funny that day or whatever. And if you're going more to that side, which we call the sattvic side in Ayurveda, more the enlightened side or the peaceful side or the loving side or the caring for self side or making more beneficial choices on our body, is much more in that state of being. And it's always balancing that scale, which I think you're learning about at a pretty young point in your life. We all learn about it, but you had some really good life lessons that you got early on. You got sick. You understood what it took to fix yourself from that. You took on a new business venture. You're building that empire. You're working on that, but you're realizing that that's pulling a lot from self too. And so you've got this other part here that now you've had these juxtapositions or experiences that I think were perfect timing. Everything, of course, is perfect timing, but it's a very good perfect timing for you, because you will put boundaries for self that you're not going to go off the cliff now with this business, which it's easy to do when it's something that you're passionate about. It's something that you love. It's your dream. It is your empire. It's something that you're birthing and you want to do so good. And it's so easy to overlook yourself and not eat and not take care of yourself and not sleep and not do all the things that we need to do for good foundation so that you have something to pour into that business, right? Like if you give it all away, but you had that reminder and that experience with the Lyme to say like, no, you cannot do that. You must take care of self and stay grounded. And so, again, it's almost like divine timing, I think, for you.
Definitely. It feels like that for sure. I would agree with the timing. Like you said, it's always perfect timing for everything, but it is crazy how it all just aligned, like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Cause I remember when we met was before, I think it was before you bought your business, and then you bought that. And I was like, holy crap. Like, cause I remember how I felt when I was not feeling well, and like, there's no way that I could have done that.
I don't even know how I did it, period. Like, trust me, there's days I wake up and I'm like, how is this my life? I don't know. And like, sometimes, I mean, in a good way, but like also, like you just have moments of like realization where you're just like, holy crap, like I own this business. Like, am I running it right? Like, I'm like, am I doing it right? Like, even though there's not a right way or a wrong way, because it's mine, but that's how I think. Like, I'm like, am I like worthy of this? Like,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You're worthy of it. And I have the thought of like, just think about the analogy of like how you take care of yourself is how you take care of your business, right? And you just got to make sure that you're having the right boundaries there, but pouring in the right amount of love and caring and respect and whatever else. And, I always was trained to like fair but firm. You want to be fair with everything, but firm with it. Like you want to have,
so true.
Boundaries and put things in place. And how you treat your employees and different things along those lines. Like, you always just want to be fair but firm with everything that you deal with. And it's the same with the bodies. You want to be fair in what you're giving to yourself and the self-love and care that you give. And you have to be firm sometimes about enforcing that and doing it, walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So,
I like that though. That's a good saying. Firm, but
fair but firm. Mm-hmm.
Fair but firm. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Firm but fair. Yeah.
I'm going to say that from now on.
That was one of my TGI Fridays managers back in the day.
Really? That's funny. TGI, man, that's good. Fair but firm.
Yes. A lot of those things that just stuck with me and makes so much sense from a business perspective. But
that's why I like it, because I'm like, wow, like that's kind of how I kind of go about running things. So I like that saying to kind of summarize it. I like that.
Yeah, you just got to stay grounded and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And
like you said, that can be prevalent to like a lot of areas in your life too. So
that's right. And so it's no different. And so when you're questioning, like, am I doing this right? You answered yourself. There is no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of keeping all those components in check, like the amount of self-care, the amount of attention that you're paying to it, listening to it, doing things about it, having the boundaries, just the living, breathing organism, just like anything else. So it just takes all the same things that we need, just like a plant.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of curious, when you were healing yourself, when you were so tired, was there anything specific that you can think of that you did to kind of encourage yourself along? Like, how did you, I remember when I was so tired, like it was really hard to motivate myself or like get the energy to do it. Did you have something specific to do?
I don't really remember if there was anything that I like did specifically necessarily to like, like get that energy. But honestly, like just being honest, I feel like it's kind of like I just had to find it. Like I had a job and you have to go. And I think it was kind of, I guess what I could say is like, better answer your question is, I think for me, it was just like the hope that got me through, if that's kind of like what you're asking, like kind of what got you through when it was like so bad. And I think it was just like, obviously like doing your responsibilities that you need to do no matter what, but staying hopeful of like, okay, this is going to be fine. I am not going to feel like this forever. I'm only, gosh, that was 2 years ago. So I'm only 27, like, or actually at the time I wasn't quite 27 yet, because I turned 27 in October. So I was 26 and I'm like, there's no way that I have like that I'm going to feel like this forever. But the times that were scary was thinking or feeling like maybe it was going to feel like that forever. Because I do remember times of being like, I feel like what an old lady says they feel like when you just so ache, like you're just achy all over your body. Like, cause it was manifesting here for me, but it started to be in other areas too. And just like, and then the fatigue then. So like you're mentally exhausted and you're physically just exhausted and hurting. And you're like, my gosh, like this, like is probably how old people feel. Like, hopefully not as bad, but maybe, cause sometimes they, like, you're just thinking of like, they always say like, oh, it hurts to get out of bed every day, and that's how I was feeling. So, I think for me it was just more so like just staying hopeful and knowing that I am so young. I think I kept thinking that of like, I'm so young, like this can't be the end. Like this can't be the end all be all. Like I have to get better. Like I have so much more life to live and not feel this way. So I think for me, it was a little more of like just being hopeful and positive that kind of like got me more motivated or to do the things. And then definitely like when I started to see how some of the things were working, even just a little bit, that definitely kept me motivated. I'm like, all right, like we're on to something, like this is gonna do it. So, that kept me strong, like with the diet and stuff, like, especially when you're like, this sucks today. Like, you're like, okay, but that one cookie or whatever the heck it was is not worth feeling the way that I did. So yeah, for me, probably just hope more than anything.
Yeah. And you really have me thinking, like, I wonder if I've thought about this so many times. Why do some people get better? Why do some people not? What really makes that difference? And like, I never want to it's always such a hard thing to say, but it's like, I wonder for the people who just say that they're going to get better, if that's really what it comes down to. And I know some people are maybe listening are like, well, I said I'm going to get better too, but they're not. And it's like something deep down inside them does not believe that they can get better.
Yeah,
and I feel like you believed that you could get better. And so that laid the groundwork and the foundation strong enough for you to be able to actually get better.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's like almost like planting that seed, or like the power of manifestation, or like however you look at it, or even just like the thought of like, well, if you don't believe in yourself, then how do you expect anyone else to believe you? Like, if I walk in a room and I'm like saying all these things and I don't even believe what I'm saying, well, then obviously I'm not going to come off confident or authentic, or someone in the room is going to feel the energy is like off something. Like someone's going to know, even if you do come in super confident about what you're saying. And so obviously, just like I said, then how do you expect them to believe you? Like, so I feel like that just goes right back to that, however you want to think of it, of planting the seed, the manifestation, believing in yourself. Like, just like you said, if you don't believe that you can get better, well, then maybe your body, your cells in your body aren't going to believe that you can get better. Like, I truly, like, that sounds so crazy, but I do believe that. Like, well, just like how I've been reading these, like, or not been reading, but I've seen things before of stuff like, when you say something and you're like, why did I say, and you're like, I'm an idiot or I'm stupid. And even if you say it out loud, or even if you just say it in your head, it like stays in your body. Like your body is listening to that, or your mind, all of it. So even if you just think, oh, I'm stupid for saying that, like that's still going to stay ingrained somewhere until you start to change that and be like, oh, wow, like I forgot. I wonder if I need sleep. Like maybe thinking in that way or something.
Yes.
And
yes.
not being like, oh, I'm stupid. Yeah. So and it's so funny that I'm even, sometimes when I talk things out loud, I'm like, how am I saying this? Cause back in high school, I would be like listening to something like this and be like, these people are crazy. Like they don't know. But the more you go through life and your own things and see other people struggle with things, it really becomes so much more pronounced and obvious that these things are real. Like,
yes,
they're there for a reason. They're talked about for a reason. Like, yeah.
You give me chills as you were saying that. So it's like, I know when that happens to my body, that's like the energy is like, yes, that's like a confirmation for me. Like, it's just like, that's the true spoken word right there. It's like, cells know. They do know. Yep. And you cannot trick your body. Like you've got to be radically committed from the core, from the true essence of self, that this is a possibility or it's never going to manifest. It's not, if you're not open to it as an option, it's not going to be there. Like I literally, like, I don't know if you can see, but I have goosebumps, a little bit. It's kind of just like, whoa, okay. Cause right now, so many things in my head are clicking about so many other situations in my life. And I'm like, I get it. Okay. I have a really big moment of clarity right now. But it is like, we just have to know that that option is there. And maybe it might seem insurmountable or completely undoable or impossible to some people. It's not impossible to get better. It's not. You're proof. I'm proof. There's lots of other people that have been on the show that are proof, so many different contexts. And we really just have to reframe our story to self and what we're allowing to be an outcome as an option, like change that into an existence or make that truly an option. And like, I know, again, it might seem impossible, but just don't block that. Don't make that option not exist for yourself, because you're just going to have a worse existence then. Like,
definitely. Like, I'm even just like going back to that same thing. Like, it's so crazy too. Cause like just through everything with my life, like I feel like I'm a super big dreamer, like just like have pretty big, wild things that I've always wanted to do. And I never knew what I was doing. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to run a business, but I just knew like that's what I wanted. And I just did, even if it was like, I just woke up every day and was like, this is what I want. So what I'm getting at is like, being where I'm at today wasn't like I just did all these amazing, great things. Like, it's not like I taught 1,000 classes of yoga or like was the best yoga teacher even at the studio. Like, that's not even the case at all. And I just remember every day waking up and just being like, this is what I want. This is what I want my life to look like. Like, and I would just imagine it in my own head. I wouldn't write it down. I'm not a journaler at all. I don't write things down, which is probably something I need to do. So what I'm getting at is just the power of your mind, like your thoughts. Like, this is something that I never talked out loud often at all. If to anyone, it was very minimal. And I never even wrote it on a piece of paper, because everyone always says, you have to write it down. You have to write it down. Like, and I do believe that's good, but it just for an example, like to give to someone that might be listening about whatever it is in their life, Lyme or not, just think about it all the time and imagine it in your head. And you'll slowly, like, your actions will just start to correspond into that direction of some sort, or the energy or the people around you or situations, whatever it is, the universe is going to make it happen slowly or get you to where you need to be to have the opportunity. And sometimes maybe you have to grab onto it then. Like, it's not just the universe doing it, but it really blows my mind of the things that I've accomplished, more so in how I think anyway of it was more of me just manifesting it in my mind. Like, because so many people will really ask, like, well, what did you do to like to accomplish that? And not just the business, like other things too. And a lot of times I'm like, I don't know. Like, I didn't do anything insanely special. Like, I didn't study every night for 10 hours or do yoga every day, all day for, 3 months. Like, whatever it is. Like, it's not like I did anything absolutely insane to like be consumed to get to where I am. Like, I think really it was more just the power of the mind and like believing that you can. So, and definitely having like the positive mindset too, of just like, even when something, goes a little off, like you're still like, but this is going to happen. Like, so just wanted to add that in too, of like, just kind of really honing in on that, the power of that, of like believing it. So
I love that you added that. You're making me think about so many of my teachers, like Joe Dispenza. He always says thoughts matter because they become matter. And, he's done a lot of studies on epigenetics, and like they've proven like people who think about, picture, feel, playing the piano even can increase their finger dexterity by like 25% just picturing it alone, which is insane. And then you're also making me think about Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you listened to her, but she talks more about, it's truly like feeling something, putting yourself in that space and feeling it. And if you're picturing it and practicing what that's going to look like and feeling that in your body, you can manifest things so much faster than if you write it. I mean, writing it down is powerful in and of itself for sure. Yeah. But I do think a lot more of the magic comes from feeling it, from already living like we've had it, or like knowing what it's going to feel like, or practicing it, picturing it every day. I mean, if you put a picture on a thing in your face every day and you see it all the time, like it just comes that much faster, right? Yep. That's why they say to do vision boards and stuff, because you're seeing it. You can put it in your mind and then like feel it. And, the mind doesn't know anything different between reality and what is imagined. The mind doesn't know.
I know. That's wild too. I love thinking about that. Like, oh man, I feel like we need to like have like a whole other episode on just like,
I could geek out
the mind and like, I don't even know, like just like a random one where we could just really dive into all the things like, but no, yeah, it's really cool too when like to talk to someone like you too, where it's like, we can really conversate back and forth about it. 'Cause not even 95% of the people in my life would be able to have a conversation like we're having right now. So that also
only every day, girl.
That honestly like makes the world of a difference to me as well too, of just first of all, how I feel about you and our connection, but also, it gives me a little hope too, like that there is more people out in the world that think like me than what I believe. Like, because again, this can feel really lonely when you're open to some of these concepts. And sometimes it feels like I just feel the struggle of trying to make people just even see like the glimpse of it, like this much. And I'm like, if you would just open your eyes, like even like a crack, like your life would be so different. And I'm not even talking about a specific thing. It's just like being open to some of the things that we're talking about right now.
Yes.
And it just hurts my heart that people are so resistant to it. It's like, what are you going to lose? Like, all you got to do is like open up your mind a little bit. Like, you're not losing anything. You're not even losing money. Like, and so that can feel lonely. So it's really cool to have people like you where how we're having this conversation and stuff. And hopefully anyone that's listening that maybe feels the same way will be like, oh my God,
yes,
we're talking about these things that I believe in and no one wants to talk to me about it. You know, or they look at you like you have 3 heads or something. So, yeah, I think it's just, these podcasts are so cool too, just to like connect the like-minded people of in some way, even if you're just listening.
Yes. Or even to plant the seed for those who aren't.
Yep.
These could be completely new concepts to people. And they're like, eh. And I can remember on my journey, you know, like when I even went to my very first Ayurvedic workshop, I was like, I don't know, but I go back to those notes that I had taken like 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, like then it was so foreign to me. And now it's just like so ingrained in me and it's just how I am. And, you know, I've really assimilated more into that lifestyle because it makes a lot more sense. But at first it was like,
yeah,
I don't know. So even if we're just planting those seeds for those people who are like very resistant to this idea, and now we put another tenant in there that's going to just make them shift faster, because it's so useful. And that's how I really healed my body on so many levels, is picturing it and feeling it and experiencing that. And like you say, you know, you have hope, you have that open, optimistic part of you that knows that the rest of your life is a lot longer and I'm going to choose to be healthy for it as opposed to suffer and be miserable. Like, I know that that's going to be an option for me. The option of being sick for the rest of my life is not there. That's what I closed, was not being sick for the rest of my life. Open the option to be healthy for the rest of my life. And really to understand why I got sick in the first place. Was it a cry for help? Is it a call for attention? What's really at the root of why my soul has chosen that? Was it truly just for the evolution of what has come to my being from it? I don't know, but these are questions that we really do need to sit with and ask self and get some clarity around to help us heal. And there is so much of the energy connected to it. It's not just a physical thing. It's a mental, it's an emotional, it's so many things inside of us that can possibly get knocked out of alignment, that we got to balance that scale back into getting everything in a healthy perspective again. But it's much more than just a physical level. And then I guess as maybe a follow-up last question for you, could you please tell us, and we talked about a lot of this, and so maybe you've already answered this question indirectly, but what would be the best thing that's happened to you as a result of getting Lyme and tick-borne illness?
I mean, I feel like there is a lot of like small avenues for sure that could, you know, be unsaid or not talked about and stuff. But I think overall the best way to summarize it would be the deeper awareness of your body and what you put in it and how it directly affects all of it, how the whole thing functions, meaning like your body, the whole thing, mind to toes. I think that's like the best way to summarize it. So just like such a deeper awareness, which is crazy because I was very aware of my body with yoga too. So to think that I could have even a deeper awareness is actually really crazy too. But definitely just the deeper awareness of the body on all levels, mental, physical, even spiritual. And like I said, what foods, drinks, I mean, kind of even like what you're putting on your skin, even I've become a little more aware of too. Like just it starts to open other doors of because you have to be so aware and change the diet and do so many other disciplined things. And it really opens up doors to, well, maybe I should try this now or do this now. Like it changes kind of the person you are and your maybe some of the values or some of the things that you want in your life or don't want in your life. It definitely, the awareness piece changes some of those other things, I think. So just, I think ultimately the summary would be the awareness that is brought, I think, is a huge plus side that I will take with me forever and ever and ever and ever.
That's right. That's right. It's a beautiful gift, and maybe not the most fun way to get it, to receive it. Yes. But it's a beautiful gift that will serve you very well for the rest of your life. And as I said, it's like a permanent accountability coach that will just always keep you moving more towards that sattvic state, more towards the enlightened side of things. And to hear a yoga teacher say that what her best thing happened is getting greater awareness, you were reading my mind. I was like, man, that's wild. Like you would think that you're already super like that just because, but we always have room for expansion on that.
Yes, so, definitely. I think it was also kind of like for me, like that puzzle piece that was sort of missing a little, like, because I was very, like really into yoga and exercising and things. And I started to really dive into some health things after finding yoga. But I mean, now looking back, it was just like surfacing. Like it wasn't, at the time I was like, oh, I'm doing all the healthy things. But really when you look back, it was just surfacing of the interest of it. And then when it like that really like dove me so much deeper, forcefully, but now not forcefully. So,
yes.
Yeah, it is really crazy how much more it can make you aware. So
yes. Now willingly.
Yes. Now willingly for sure. Well, and I always say the only negative about awareness is once you're aware, you can no longer be unaware.
That's right.
So I don't think it's a negative thing necessarily, but like it can be at times because like if you want to ignore something, like you can't ignore it because you know it. So that can be frustrating sometimes. I've found in certain situations, like, when I want to have a glass of wine, I want to ignore that this is going to be not a good thing.
Yes.
But I know it will constantly remind, like my brain, will be like, you shouldn't have this. Like,
right.
So, and that's just a small, stupid example, but yeah, it really does change the game. So.
Yes. And you're making me laugh because we were talking about ignorance is bliss before too. And it's like, sometimes it's best not to know. And once you are aware, there's really no going back, or like the Matrix, like once you're awake, the red pill or the blue pill, like you can't really go back. You're aware now and it's there. And it's like, oh man, I can't drink this water. It's out of a plastic bottle that might kill me. Like it can get really extreme that way once you learn about it. But then you have to have that balance system though too. Like you can't go too far.
Yep.
You're going to make yourself cuckoo and you're going to draw something to you because you're so afraid of it then.
Yes, that's true too.
Matter because they become matter. So if we're thinking about stuff that we're scared of all the time, we're still manifesting that too, because that's what we're thinking about all the time. So it's just that fine line that you've got to walk, that once you are aware, just don't be too aware.
Yes. Yeah. Seriously. It's so true. Like staying aware, but not being consumed by the awareness of something. So
that's right. Well, this is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this tremendously. I'm thankful that you were able to do this with me. I could sit and talk to you about this stuff truly for hours. Because
I know this is cool because it was actually one of our first times that we really dove like deeper. Like we definitely talked about it when we met a few times, but not quite on this level. So it's really nice to dive in with it. So
tremendously. Like I look forward to continuing these kinds of conversations because I look for somebody to talk to about stuff like this too. It's fun.
Yeah, it is.
You're a good manifestor. I'm a good manifestor. And so I don't meet too many other people who can do it so easily, and knock on wood, like I don't want to lose the ability, but it's fun. And so
it is.
When you realize that, life becomes a lot more fun and you can do so many more fun things. But there's so many people who kind of trip over themselves, and I can fall subject to that plenty of times.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get you wrong, but like figuring it out and I'm seeing it more clearly. And so to have people like you to bounce, a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And this was great. Definitely looking forward to when you're back in town, we can get together and talk more.
Most definitely. Just a couple more weeks and I'll be back.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, again, this is Tashia Linderman joining me today on the Silver Lyming. She owns Building 7. It's a really nice, I should have said this at the beginning, but a very nice yoga studio in my hometown. And whereas a lot of my guests on the show are people that I've never met in person, Tashia is somebody that I do know in person. And I'm just really grateful for your friendship and support. And again, just everything that we have in common and the things that we have to look forward to together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a really good afternoon.